Hello everyone, it's GigaBeef here, and today we're going to check out the new king of low recoil in the latest patch 12.9, which as of January 2021 is of course the 9mm Vector. This weapon has overthrown the MPX at the top of the leaderboard for lowest recoil in Tarkov, so stick around and let's check it out. Alright, so let me just preface this video with a few words. Tarkov is in a state of flux right now, and I had all of this video ready to go, and then BSG changed everything. Now, I'm not going to complain too much, as it's good to have an active dev tweaking the game, but as a creator who likes to make things in advance, it's a bit of a nightmare. They've been making changes every single day, so please bear in mind that stuff is moving all over the place at the moment, and beware of changes because they are frequent and can be quite big. With that said, let's get into it. So it's pretty clear from the outset that the Vector is a beast when it comes to low recoil choices across the weapons. With a very low starting recoil of 32, an ergo of 74, and costing 73,000 rubles from Skier 2, it's fairly easy to pick up this gun pretty early on and run it no problem at all at stock, even though it is a little expensive. However, as a futuristic and modern firearm, it is easily moddable in Tarkov as well, which means that we can make it stupidly low on recoil. So let's firstly see how far we can take it from its initial recoil all the way down to 20, and then for real gameplay, see if it's worth putting on some cheaper mods for a more realistic build. So jumping straight into it, the build is actually pretty straightforward. Let's start with Muzzles, and here we'll find that the best suppressed and unsuppressed builds are almost identical for the Vector, with the best in slot suppressor for recoil being the Osprey, which is this one, from Peacekeeper 3 at $384, which is around 50k rubles equivalent, providing minus 12% recoil with a hit of 14 to ergonomics. Now if we switch over to the TACOM, which is this one here, this is much cheaper at $57 from Peacekeeper 3, equivalent to 7,000 rubles, and also gives minus 12% recoil, but only with one ergo penalty this time. So it's really a cost and ergonomics decision here on whether you want to go suppressed for $327 more, and also forgo the 13 ergonomics between the two. Now, if what we're after is the absolute lowest recoil build, there are two barrels to choose from. The original 5-inch barrel gives minus 3% recoil and no ergo penalty, whereas the 6-inch gives minus 4% recoil and minus 2 ergo. I'm not sure why this is the case, but you can't actually apply the TACOM to the 6-inch barrel, so technically speaking, the 6-inch Osprey suppressed build is the lowest recoil. We're talking about 1 point, so practically it doesn't really matter too much. Right, so onto foregrips. Outside of actually choosing a foregrip, there is an option to use the Mark V modular rail on the Vector. You need to remove all of the other rails around the outside before this one will fit, like so. And this doesn't do anything other than remove one ergonomics. However, what it does do is it lets you apply foregrips a little bit longer, which is specifically these Magpul AFG type grips, which don't fit onto the original rail because it is too small. We won't be using this for the most optimal build here, but it's interesting to note nonetheless. That aside, we're going to stick on the RK2, which continues to be the highest recoil reducing mod in the game, even though it has been pulled back to minus 4% reduction from minus 5 in the previous patch. Now, one of the biggest changes in 12.9 is regarding stocks, where we've seen a big shift in what is good for recoil, along with plenty of ergonomics changes too. The default Chris Vector folding stock gives minus 31% recoil reduction and plus 7 ergo, which is our base to start making some comparisons with the other alternatives. To use anything else that is not this stock, we need the Vector non-folding adapter, which hits us with minus 2 ergonomics from the outset. As usual, the best combination is normally using the SI Advanced tube, which is this one here, with a top level recoil reducing stock, as the 4% reduction that it gives is too much for the others to compete. Those other ones that I'm talking about are the ones that don't use the SI, which is either the UBR Gen 2, which is this one here, or the Double Star, which is this, and has a recoil pad on it. Those only have minus 33% and minus 35% respectively, which can't match the ones with the SI Advanced as usual. Of the stocks that we can use with the SI, the real switch up is that the PRS Gen 3 not only gives the most recoil reduction at minus 34% now, it's just that stocks don't give as much recoil as they used to at all, but this one used to be an ergo-centric stock, so it's interesting to see BSG push this to the top of the recoil chart. I went through and tabulated all of the stocks and the changes so that we can see exactly how much recoil and ergonomics we get from each one, and indeed the PRS Gen 3 is the one with the lowest recoil these days. However, I think the meta stock that we're going to see on every single gun is the MOE stock and butt pad. This one seems to have been slightly missed in the rebalancing. It kind of makes sense on its own, but when you apply the pad to it, it's only 1% recoil down from the top recoil, and it gives you plus 10 ergo, which is 7 better than the Gen 3. This thing, I think you're going to see people run on pretty much every gun. It looks really nice as well. I used to like this before anyway, just because of the way it looks, and you can choose your color, so it's a pretty nice stock overall. Anyway, back to the lowest recoil build. If we crack on the PRS Gen 3, we can see over here the recoil is down to 20. You used to be able to get this to 19 a few days ago, but BSG have now removed the recoil reduction from the 50 round Glock mag. I assume this is because originally it was meant to help with the Glock recoil due to how the mag would weigh so much compared to the pistol, but this effect is not really as valid for the Vector. The ergo penalty of this has also been increased to minus 19, which is pretty hefty. Also, we don't have the ability to use scopes to get recoil benefits anymore either. Previously there were a couple that gave 1 or 2% reduction, but this is now gone, which makes it a bit cleaner to create these lowest recoil builds nowadays in this patch. Overall, this gets our suppressed build to 20 recoil, which is insane, and 32 ergo, which is a bit rubbish. For our loud build, we get to 21 recoil, but with 47 ergo, which is just about acceptable, I suppose. It is about workable. Given the low recoil of this weapon, investing all our energy into reducing recoil is honestly a bit unnecessary, so let's have a look at an alternative. Whatever muzzle that we've decided to run can stay, but on foregrips, we may as well just use one that has high ergonomics and no recoil reduction, as it hardly makes any difference at all. The Knight's Armament Vertical has 7 ergonomics and is dirt cheap from Peacekeeper at $31, so let's just use that. So next we can choose a stock to use. I think that hands down, as I said, the best stock is this MOE Carbine stock. It's just over $100 to get the stock of the butt pad, which is super value on everything except the Vector. I mean, we've seen that recoil hardly matters here, and the difference between this and the default stock is actually 4 recoil and 4 ergo. I think this is partly because this gives the -2, so it makes it not really worth it. I don't think it's worth adding the adapter, then the SI Advanced, then the MOE Carbine, and then the butt stock. We can just keep with the standard, and it really hardly affects the build at all. Lastly, let's pick a different mag so we actually get some of our ergonomics back and get it to a decent level. You can go for the drum if you want, and with the fire rate it might be worth it, but the big stick is only 3,400 rubles from Skier and holds 33 rounds for -5 ergo rather than -19. If this version was the 1100 RPM, which is like that on the .45, this would be a stronger consideration to go for the drum, but with 33 shots, you get about 2 seconds of sustained fire in full auto, which is alright. At least it's pretty comparable to an M4 using 30 rounders, which I think is fine. Before we add any scopes, this gets us to 26 vertical and 75 on ergonomics, which is much better on balance and gives us a CQB shredder that costs less than 15,000 to mod from the traders. If you really want the lowest recoil at the expense of all else, Green Tracer gives -6% recoil as well, but unfortunately that ammo sucks for most things other than RPing as a stormtrooper in Star Wars. AP 6.3 can be fired just fine from this weapon, and 7N31 is a clear winner as it has the same damage but with more pen. We paid for this with 15% extra recoil, but at 26, who really cares? That's if you can buy those bullets, that is. In terms of scopes, one that is quite good now is the EKP. I've always liked the reticle here, and they've reduced the ergonomics penalty to -2. However, you can buy the Cobra Shade for a tiny amount of rubles, which doesn't interfere with the sightlines at all, and gives you +3 ergonomics, which actually gives you a small boost when using this sight overall by +1. So as usual, please do consider dropping a like and a sub if you found any of my content useful, and feel free to check out the rest of the channel where I'll be continuing to update with helpful guides, builds and strategies to help you become more successful in Escape from Tarkov. You can also follow me on Twitter and Twitch to catch me when I'm live, links in the description below. Until then, I'll see you next time, and as always, have fun in your raids.